Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into some sources discussing the white network.
Right. And specifically looking at its technical side, especially around real-world assets, RWAs.
Yeah, RWAs. Our goal here really is to pull out the key takeaways.
Yeah.
Get you up to speed quickly on what these sources say makes this platform tick.
Exactly. It's pitched as this bridge between, well, traditional finance and blockchain tech.
So the sources frame it like that, as a purpose-built bridge.
Mhm.
And honestly, the first thing that really jumps out is the performance they're claiming.
Oh, absolutely. That's where it gets pretty eye-opening. They talk about blazing throughput.
Blazing throughput, what kind of numbers are we talking?
Up to 200,000 transactions per second. That's the headline figure.
200,000, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the sources, they deliberately contrast that with what they see as limitations on other layer ones, which might top out much lower.
That's a massive difference. Do the sources give any clues about how they're aiming for that? Is it a totally different approach?
It sounds like it. The suggestion is a very optimized kind of ground-up architecture, not just tweaking existing blockchain models.
Okay.
And speed isn't the only thing. They pair it with instant finality.
Instant finality.
Yeah.
Meaning, once it's done, it's really done. No rollbacks.
Pretty much. They're targeting settlement in under 100 milliseconds, and crucially, zero risk of reorgs, where transactions might get reversed later.
Under 100 milliseconds? That's fast.
Extremely fast. The source material actually compares it to the internal matching engines you'd find inside, traditional stock exchanges.
Okay, so that kind of speed and certainty, that's the foundation. Makes sense if you're dealing with like high-frequency trading or sensitive assets.
Exactly. That performance is sort of the base layer. Then, built on that, is what they call the Unified On-Chain RWA platform.
Unified RWA platform. And RWA here, the sources mostly mean things like tokenized stocks, bonds, right? Traditional stuff.
That's the focus, yes.
Yeah.
The idea is this platform handles the whole life cycle.
The whole thing. Like,
tokenizing the asset, letting people trade it, financing against it, and settling it all directly on the network's base layer.
right. And what's the big idea behind doing all that in one place?
Well, what's fascinating, or what the sources stress, is the implication for liquidity. Instead of having, say, Apple stock traded on dozens of separate exchanges globally.
Fragmented pools, yeah.
Exactly. This aims to create one single global 247 liquidity pool for those assets shared across different jurisdictions.
Okay, so turning lots of little markets into one big one, basically. That's ambitious.
It is. And to handle the, the real world side of things, the sources mention an integrated licensed brokerage entity.
Ah, so there's a regulated piece working alongside the tech.
Yes, and that seems key. This regulated entity handles the actual mechanics, the tokenization process itself, custody of the underlying asset or its representation, and the redemption back into the traditional form. It's the bridge interface.
Makes sense. You need that for real-world assets. Which brings up compliance, obviously. How do they tackle KYC, AML, all that?
They describe it as compliance by design, but it's opt-in.
Opt-in.
Yeah, so regulated players, like banks or funds, can meet their KYC-AML obligations using attested credentials. Think verified ID, but off-chain.
Okay.
And these credentials get verified on-chain using zero-knowledge proofs. So you can prove compliance without plastering sensitive data all over the public ledger.
ZK proofs for compliance.
Okay, interesting. And there's a privacy angle too, also opt-in.
Correct. Privacy by design, opt-in. Things like shielded transfers, encrypted memos for sensitive transaction details.
It's not total privacy, right? Needs to be auditable for regulated stuff.
Exactly. The sources note it's designed to maintain auditability where needed, so configurable privacy, not absolute anonymity.
Got it. So putting it all together, you've got this claimed high performance, the focus on unifying RWA trading, the integrated regulated broker, and then these opt-in layers for compliance and privacy. Yeah, you can see the picture they're painting. It looks like an attempt to address some of the main roadblocks institutions often cite about using blockchain for serious financial assets.
Kind of like trying to build something that meets Wall Street requirements, but on a distributed ledger.
That seems to be the core technical vision presented in these sources, yes, specifically tailored for RWAs.
So if you're listening and thinking about where finance or digital assets might be headed, what's the key takeaway here?
I think this deep dive highlights a specific approach, a proposed architecture, aiming squarely at the needs of traditional capital markets, the speed, the scale, the regulatory hooks, but trying to deliver it within a blockchain context built for real-world assets.
Right. So maybe the question to ponder is this. If a platform can deliver that kind of exchange-level speed, that guaranteed settlement, and integrate tightly with regulated finance, how could that change things?
Not just for trading crypto, but for how you might access or interact with stocks, bonds, maybe even real estate down the line. What does that kind of integration imply for the future of global markets? Something to think about.